And okay, so welcome everybody, and so happy to see you. And for the Friends of the Stirling Road Library, thank you so very much for supporting us and making it possible for us to have Shelly with us, and all of the other wonderful people who give us our programs. It is definitely because of you. If you're here for the first time or you are a guest, welcome. We're happy to see you. And if you're interested in our programs, check us out at www.stirlingfriends.org. See what we're doing, and please join us as well. I also have to tell everybody to please mute yourself, because I'm usually not so good about telling people to do that. So I'm trying to correct myself along the way. As far as the programs in the newsletter, I know some of you read them, some of you don't read them. That's just life. Two things I want to point out. In addition to Shelly, who's the best of our movie programs, it only took us how long? A year for me to get Shelly to be on board with us, and now we have a mutual loving society, and we're not letting him go. But we also have other movie programs that I just have to make a note to you of. The Monday matinee with Candy will be at 12:30 this month. And going forward, we got back our 12:30. It's Downton Abbey. And remember, from now on, we're back to 12:30. And the library accommodated us. The other thing we're back to since COVID is Cinema Paradiso. We are back at Cinema Paradiso, and the time on Tuesday, Valentine's Day, will be 1 o'clock. We used to meet at 1:30. They changed their time, so it's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, and please join us for Valentine's Day there. The movie there is 80 for Brady, and it's just a fun, feel-good movie. Certainly not the quality, either of them, of Shelley's movie, but everybody has a different audience. So in addition to that, just read what's in your newsletter. It is so filled with so much stuff, and join us in as many things as appeal to you. With that, I will turn it to Shelly, who we are so lucky to have. He comes to us by way of New York originally, and we're all in Florida coming from somewhere originally, most of us anyway, so we're happy to have you. And in addition to teaching at FIU, I think, right?
NFAU.
NFAU. He is busier than busy can be, but he makes room for us, and that's all we care about. And we are so thankful. You all know his background, so I'm not going to tell you more about that. If you want to know, if you're not getting his newsletter, I will put it in the chat, and you should get it because he is very busy. And you might want to see the other movies, because he has an amazing list of movies that it boggles my mind every time I get them and read them. I wish I could go to all of them, but I can't. So Phoenix. I saw Phoenix many years ago. I think when it first came out, probably at Cinema Paradiso, and was thrilled to see it again. I remember loving it then, and I loved it now. So Shelly, now tell me all the things that I probably missed.
Okay, well, thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. It's as usual. It's great to be back. I look forward to these every 2 weeks. And I can't believe how this has grown. This is terrific. Anyway, yes, this week we're doing Phoenix. Now, it is a haunting portrait of identity, loss, the search for answers in post-World War II Berlin. It is what can be categorized as a post-Holocaust film, but it's more than that. It's more than that. And I'll get into that in a minute. First, just to go back over Christian Petzold, who many of you are familiar with, because a few months ago we did Barbara, which was one of his films. He's a preeminent director from Germany. He is one of international cinema's highly acclaimed directors. All his films are reviewed. His films are all entered in the top festivals. He as his specialty is excavating Germany's past. The country's, for instance, the country's participation in the Afghan war with his film Jerichow, which is really a riff on The Postman Always Rings Twice, if you happen to see it. His two films that dealt with the legacy of the Berlin Wall, Barbara, which many of you have seen, as I said, and also Yella, which is a very interesting take on it. A story of escape and love during World War II, Transit, and his latest work, which is a love story embedded in the midst of Germany, entitled Undine. And of course, there is Phoenix. Now, in my estimation, Phoenix is already ranks as a classic film. I think it will be a classic. I think it's a film that people can revisit from time to time. He certainly has all the influences of Hitchcock, which he grew up with. He and his mother had escaped from East Berlin, had gone to West Germany. He grew up in a settlement project in West Germany as a teenager, went to film school, went to university, and he fell in love with the movies at a young age, and they had an influence on him, as I said, especially Hitchcock. But none of his films pertains more to Germany at the end of World War II than Phoenix. His characters are typically alienated figures whose personal experiences represent a sense of dislocation associated with German identity. He also explores the conflicts of life and death. And when he discusses post-war Germany in cinema, he sees from his estimation, he sees a small amount of quality comedies or what are considered genre films based on the idea, and this is interesting, based on the idea that National Socialism, the Nazis themselves, had created an abyss into which we are thrown again and again. And that abyss was they had art, cinema, literature, banned books, banned films, banning and killing, exiling, escaping those who escaped, and killing prominent creative individuals in Germany, Jewish individuals in Germany. They created this abyss. They insisted that they were going back to before, and they would start again. The Germans reset, and then in 1945, when they lost, the Germans themselves reset the clock, as they said. They erased everything. They denied in themselves what happened. They called it a tabula rasa, a clear table. They cleared the table. We will forget what happened and we will build anew, as if you can do that, But that was also the fascist dream, to destroy everything and give birth to a new race. So it was not an uncommon thought for the Germans themselves to be able to deny what happened and then to rebuild on it. The characters in the film are all interesting. There are three main characters that we deal with in the film. Nelly, played by the wonderful Nina Haas. Nina Haas was the muse of Petzold. She appears in 5 or 6 of his films. But Nelly is a woman destroyed by the Holocaust, literally piecing herself back together. She is a reference, as I said, because of Hitchcock's influence on Petzold. She is a reference to Kim Novak in Vertigo. This film very much follows the path of Vertigo, which I will get into. And Lenny, her cousin, is the most haunted and tragic character within the film. as we learn, and I will get to her. And then there's Johnny, Nelly's husband. He has destroyed, he is a character who's destroyed everything in himself. And it is her obsession with him, even though he denies her existence as Nelly, it is her obsession with him that lights this spark in him. When she sees him, when they talk at the club, all these people are looking for a life. Some of them want their old lives back. Others, like Lenny, want new ones. They're trying to build something new, to craft some sort of idea of the future. They're united by the fact that they're all damaged and they're lost. Lenny trying to build, we'll go to Israel. She has the picture. She wants to go and restart her life. And much like Hitchcock did with Vertigo, Petzold does in this film. He links, first and foremost, he links Technicolor. He links Technicolor with film noir. It's something that Hitchcock did. He took what was generally a black and white genre, and he brought it to Technicolor. And here Petzold does the same thing. His contrasts are always stark. The world itself is black and white, it seems, while people keep trying to access these in-between spaces. And in the first 20 minutes, nothing is from Nelly's point of view. She has no identity. We see her drive in at the beginning, her face bandaged. The soldiers at the border crossing. One of them talks about Eva Bush, could be Eva Braun trying to escape, and the other one, Eva Braun's dead. And he forces her to take off the bandages, and even though we don't see her, he does. And he apologizes when Lenny says who she is. But Petzold places long distances in the ensuing between Nelly and other people. Not until they are at Lenny's, when they listen to Kurt Weill's song, Sing Low, Speak Low, that we see something happening to her. It touches her. It is that feeling that brings her back to when she was in love. A moment lost, but was as beautiful as a memory that keeps her alive. As suddenly she gains a face, she emerges, something emerges between Nelly and Lena. When she wanders the streets in the daytime, she walks like a zombie at first. If you notice the way she walks the streets, the way her steps are measured, she walks like a ghost, like a zombie at first. Then she sees herself in that cracked mirror. And then, she comes back trying to search for Johnny. If you remember at the agency where Lena works, that's the first time we see Johnny. We don't know it's Johnny yet, but we see him, and he sneaks in, and he's seen by somebody. He runs out, and then Lena looks and realizes what this person was looking for. And then finally, now we will see this film from Nelly's perspective. We see the world through her perspective, trying to recapture what existed before the war. The scenes when Nelly visits Berlin at night, the expressionism of the streets, the blind accordionist, the man she thinks is Johnny, dragging a woman into the ruins, the Club Phoenix exterior when we see the neon light. It's like an expressionist painting that sits out there, as it might have been even before the war. And in the club, we see Nelly and Johnny in close-up. They gaze, but their gazes do not meet, especially when she calls out his name. He seems to answer, but he doesn't see her. He looks past her. She no longer exists in his mind. She tries to draw his gaze, but he doesn't. He doesn't give it. And later on in the basement, she tries to erase that hurt caused by the absence of his gaze when they look at each other. but he still doesn't recognize her. He's staring at her. You're perfect. We can do this. And her failure to do it pushes her back into the world of ghosts. If Johnny would recognize her, she would be alive again. She's trying to put those pieces back. As she tells Lenny, Johnny made me back into Nelly. Sometimes I get really jealous of myself, of how happy I was. She talks about herself in the third person, as if referring to someone else. Even so, it relates to her. She was that person. Where has that gone? Where has that gone? Petzold uses a light and dark motif to create those impenetrable corners, especially in the basement sequence. I especially like that basement sequence. Oh, we have overexposed windows. If you're looking at the light rushing in at that small light, there are noises outside that Nelly hears, that we hear. There's traffic, children are playing, people are rushing around. It offers the possibility that something's coming back to life. But the stark contrast will erase any nuance that goes on. If you think about it, Nelly doesn't accept stories. She doesn't accept songs, poems, claiming that love. She claims, if you look into her mind, that love may not be possible unless she finds Johnny. She wants to turn her back on time. As Nina Haas said of the character she explored, she was interested in people who don't accept something, and in doing so are defiant and stubborn, which is the way she portrays Nelly. In the scene in which Nelly recounts fragments of her experience at the camp, remember when he says, "You'll come back dressed this way," and she sees that this is totally wrong. This is not how people came back. This is not what people looked like. This is based, I'll do these asides. This is based on the testimony of a survivor taken from the Shoah Foundation's oral histories. Petzold put this in purposely. It was recorded in 1998. And the moment this woman started talking about her recollection, she could actually barely talk about it anymore. It was acted, and the way Nina Haas felt about it, this is the way she wanted to reflect it. She wanted to reflect this woman and what she experienced. So that's based on a real testimony. Nina Kunzendorf, who plays Lenny, with Lenny, there's always a good dose of pragmatism. She's a lawyer. She negotiated, she worked, she stands up for other people. The things she does are very concrete. This is her background. Even the way in which she deals with death, including her own. She's confronted with death on a daily basis. Death, suffering, and loss. She goes through those lists. She finds a cousin has died. She's constantly looking at death. And it leaves its marks. Apparently, many of the people who undertook this particular task ended up taking their own lives. Now, at some point, you can't bear it anymore. Just like she writes in her suicide note, and remember what she wrote, "I feel more drawn to our dead than to the living, This reference, and many of you should remember this, this reference is in the equally brilliant post-Holocaust film, Ida. If you think back on the film Ida by Polish director Paweł Pawlowski, when a major character, when the aunt in Ida commits suicide, it's the same attitude of being drawn more to the dead. If you remember, before she commits suicide, she's looking through the book, she's looking at the photographs of all that she's lost. And that's when she goes out the window. She is closer to the dead than to the living. And this was a very real thing at that point in time. When Johnny takes her back to the hotel where she was hidden and betrayed by him, and she's recognized by the proprietor's wife, and the proprietor runs off. He's totally not dealing with it. and she is surprised, almost shocked, to see her back. Nelly goes down into that boat or whatever it was, and she finds the hiding place. And Johnny bursts in there, surprised by what she's doing. He's totally not registering. It seems as if the only person who doesn't recognize her is him. At the end, when they're at that train station hotel, it's outside at the night. Nelly has that pistol, and she steps on the platform, and we hear the letter that Lenny wrote. And we see the train coming, and the train is almost a reminder for us because it's a freight train. And we see that train coming, and we get the feeling, we're sitting there going, no, don't do it. As if she'll jump on the tracks and end it all at that point. But no, she has something else in mind. Petzold said while editing the scene, his thought was that this scene encompasses all the permutations for him of a classic romantic tragedy. If we separate it from the idea of the Holocaust, it even becomes a romantic tragedy, what she's doing at that moment. There's the idea of suicide, murder, she's holding the gun, a murder of passion, or even a reconciliation. Maybe she'll go back to him. But we are here, Lenny's letter. She looks like she may jump, but no. And in the hotel room, when she goes back in, it's as if the wheels are turning. He wants to create that tattoo. He says, we have to do this. She pushes him out of the room. And we know why. And she goes along with his plan at the train station. Remember, he tells her all these things. This one's going to come. That one's going to come. This one's going to hug you. And they all, as if on cue, they're all coming because they're all in on it. But they respond as if they were the victims. Here's the irony. They were the victims. They lost, and they were the victims. And she's like standing there, looking at them. First of all, we as well as Nelly has to suspend disbelief at this point, because she knows anybody who's coming back from the camps is not going to look like her. They're not going to be dressed like her. And these people are going along with it. It's as if they're delusional at this point. But they're doing it. They have a reason to do it. But Nelly makes a different decision. It's a plan that's entirely hers, and we don't know it yet. We don't expect her. And at the end of the film, when she sits down in the last moments, she sits down and she goes to sing the song, and she starts low, and he's playing the piano. Johnny's playing the piano, and all of a sudden her voice comes to life, and he's looking, and it's as if, wait a minute, could it be? And he looks, and there we see the tattoo on her arm, the numbers on her arm. It's shock. And I love that reverse shot of all those people sitting there, Johnny's friends, so-called friends of Nelly, sitting there, staring back incredulously in shock. It reminded me of the last scene, for those of you who remember, in Cabaret. If you remember in Cabaret, there's a reflection of the audience, that same look. It was really amazing. But she controls the end of the story. And it's really not the end of the story, because she walks off. She can now walk off. And where she goes, what she does, we have no idea. We can think about it. We can make up all kinds of stories. But I think she has found herself and realizes who she is. Johnny, the actor who plays Johnny, Ronald Zierfeld, talks about it. And he said, he justifies why Johnny is guilty. Well, we know Johnny is guilty of betrayal, but he's guilty of a lot more. And he said, in understanding it, when they were rehearsing, Petzold had them read an autobiography by a German essayist who was 20 years old in 1933. He was studying for the bar, and 2 days after Hitler won the election, he was sitting in a courtroom working for an attorney, and the SS came into the building and they started to beat all the Jewish attorneys. And he's hearing all the shots and the screams of the people. He's sitting in a room alone. He's hearing all the shots and the screams. And he says to himself, now I'm in a tunnel. I have nothing to do with the things outside. I'm not guilty because I don't beat people. I'm just not part of the society any longer. This is a little bit of Johnny. This is how Zierfeld interpreted Johnny. I'm not really part of this. I don't beat people. I don't do anything wrong. The door opened. The essayist writes, the door opened, and 2 SS people were there with iron sticks and dogs. And they asked the attorney, Jewish or not Jewish? And he said, not Jewish. And 50 years later, he said, this is the moment where I was guilty. This is the moment where I was guilty. It's the same choice that Johnny made. He accepted the selection of the Nazis and he destroyed love. And that's guilty, I think. And that's how Zierfeld approaches Johnny in the film. As the final shot makes clear, as I said, history may fade from view, but the scars it leaves behind are insuppressible. They are insuppressible. There are subtle hints along the way that Johnny actually may have figured out Nelly's identity and consciously blocked it out. He didn't want to accept it. It's a sophisticated form of denial at the root of the movie's themes. That if we buy into him, if he didn't know who she was, how did he act out as if he didn't? So, these are the themes that Petzold is presenting in the film that he talks about. When he was asked about how the film's ending has been received in Germany, and this is interesting, Petzold's answer helps to explain the sense of collective melancholy among the Germans. After 1945, Germany had no survivor stories. At the end in 1945, they had no stories. They didn't want to hear any stories, first of all. We didn't want to hear the words from the people in the camps, he said. This was told to him. He was not born not too long after. But we heard the words from the people in the camps. Germans today always pay money for their guiltiness. They pay money to Israel. They pay money to France, a little to England. And recently, within the last few years, they've been paying money to Greece. But they never start a discourse about their guiltiness. They just pay. They just pay. This is the situation for Johnny. He wants money to leave Germany, and so the money will cover his guiltiness. Nelly has to leave, and it's the Germans that are left behind. It's not a good feeling for a German audience to be left alone. Petzold said this. For me, this was the only way we could end this story. This was the only way we could end this story, for Nelly to leave the Germans behind. There were many positive reviews in Germany for the film, but as Petzold encapsulated it all in the end, he said, but the Germans, they don't like each other. They don't like each other. Great comment on his part. The film itself, the color, the cinematography, the performances, the costuming, everything works. Everything works in tandem. But you can see the similarities between Phoenix and Vertigo. The idea of a man recreating a woman he believes died. In Vertigo, Jimmy Stewart takes Kim Novak. He dyes her hair. He finds her in a department store. He dyes her hair. He recreates her to be the woman he thought dead, and then finds out she too was alive towards the end of the film, in which she dies again. But the whole idea is vertigo, and it's vertigo for the audience because it throws us off balance. It throws us off balance. The scene, I love the scenes when she first comes to the plastic surgeon and he's looking, he has the magazines. He says, who do you want to look like? And it was funny because one of them was Hedy Lamarr, or he could make her look like an older actress. And she says, no, I want to look like myself. And he's sort of incredulous. And she has that dream when she walks out at night, and she sees all the information, and she sees, it's as if she's watching herself, as she's having an out-of-body experience when she sees herself walking into that office. And seeing the pictures and the notes, and we don't know, we can't tell if he actually did recreate her exactly, because Johnny says you look like someone. He never says who. He says you look like someone, and she plays along. I love the fact that she plays along because she'll do anything to have him, and then realizes who he really is, when it's all played out, and we do have to suspend a certain amount of disbelief during the film, when she's doing the handwriting and everything else, and he's not recognizing a thing, it's all of these things. But he also questions her, as I relate back to what I said before, when she talked about what it was like to come back from the camps, what it was like in the camp. She relates the story of what it was like in the camp. He says to her, how do you know? How do you know? Because he doesn't think she was even there. He thinks she's some German woman that he found. And because he even wants to put the tattoo on her arm. So we have to suspend a certain amount of disbelief in how he's behaving. It's very interesting. There's a whole psychological thing going on here. Because when you create someone, it is you begin to believe what you create. And that's what happens with Johnny. He recreates Nelly in his image, but as far as he's concerned, she's not Nelly. And he's going to use the creation to get what he wants. And it doesn't work out that way. It's a Pygmalion. It's like the Pygmalion story in Greek myth. And he tries to recreate this person. So there you have my take on the film. I hope you all really appreciate it. I think it's a film that's worth going back to again and again at different times. You'll see so much more in the film each time you view it. As I said, Lenny, the portrayal of Nelly, he also throws time off. When she comes back, this time is compressed. When she comes back to tell Lenny she saw him, that was after all this time that she spent with him, when he's recreating her. So we have to understand that within the context of the film. So there's so much more, and I'd like to hear some of your takes on it, how you felt about it. Fill in some of the things I may not have brought up that you liked. So who's going to go first? Who's going to go first? Let's see a hand out there. I see a hand. Rachel, thank you. Go right in.
So first of all, my dad was a Holocaust survivor. So it was interesting for me to see this. I loved the character study, and I was very intrigued by the whole characters and everything. And I understand that we have to suspend reality, but I had two problems with doing that. When her cousin is telling her that her husband betrayed her, she had like no reaction. And for me, I had a problem with the no reaction, not denying that he did this, not saying anything. She was like a blank face. And for me, that bothered me. And the thing is that I'm going, she has no reaction. I understand she's in a shock, but she is so bent on seeing Johnny. And I'm going, if somebody potentially betrayed you, would you still want them back? And I had problem with that she was just not even going there. She just still wanted him back. And when Shelly, when you were talking about the betrayal, if I remember what the cousin said correctly, she said that he turned her in. It wasn't that he was an innocent bystander, that they came to get her. He betrayed her by telling the Germans where she is. That's what I took from it. Maybe I was wrong. And the ending, I was, to be honest, a little, I was like, oh no, I want, an ending where some acknowledgement that, that they realize who she is. And I wasn't sure about that. And the other thing that I wasn't sure about was with the gun. I wasn't sure what she was going to do with the gun, whether she was going to do like a crime of passion. And I go, where is she going with this? And she didn't go anywhere with it. So that was my take. I enjoyed it. It was definitely a character study. And it was very intriguing throughout. I did like it, but I just had a little kind of questions about it.
Terrific. I mean, I understand your questions. One, I want to address them is the idea that, she doesn't say anything, she doesn't express something about it, is because her silence is her denial. Her silence, her blankness is her denial. It's like, she can't accept, because of what she had before the war, she can't accept that he could be any other way. And I think that her silence is just in dealing with that. In terms of the story, I want to stay in the frame of the story. Is, you said, suspending reality or suspending disbelief is, to understand the suspension of disbelief is we accept something that we may not believe could be real or a real expression, because otherwise we will lose the film. Otherwise we can't engage. We can't engage with the character. And engaging with her is, yes, she's in shock, but she's also in denial. And if you remember, just that whole sequence of when he turned her in. He turned her in because apparently he was in jail for 3 days. The Gestapo had him for 3 days. So they may have either tortured him, beat him up, whatever they did to make him reveal where she was. And he did it, did he do it under duress? But the fact is, the way the actor describes the character, he did it, solely because he was forced to. He himself wanted to survive. He didn't want to be killed by the Nazis. He didn't want to, I'm not one of them, but yet by saying, I'm not guilty and I'm going to go along with everything, he's guilty. He's guilty. He was guilty. He was guilty if he was guilty of betrayal, whatever he was guilty, he was guilty. He was just as guilty of those people sitting there at the end, of those friends who did nothing. They claimed they did nothing. They claimed they were victims. They were all victims. And I think this was a normal pattern among a lot of people after the war, which is why they wanted to forget. They wanted to forget. This is a story also about, a kind of group amnesia, that wanted to, what Petzold is throwing this up in the Germans' faces, so to speak. You know, he's making a film saying, this is the way, you know, this is the way most people behaved after the war. And there were betrayals like this. We know that. And we also know, and Rachel, you may know, have known this also, is that those who did survive, you know, didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to talk about it. Many of them didn't want to talk about these experiences. And it wasn't until, you know, certainly that the Shoah Foundation got involved and they started gathering testimony and all of that. So this generation growing up after the war really were kept, you know, somewhat in the dark. And it wasn't until the next generation that started to ask these questions, and everybody started to ask these questions, that all these things were made. Because look at, you know, the first time we really dealt with the Holocaust was a film, you know, it was The Diary of Anne Frank, was probably the first film that came out in the 50s that really dealt with the idea of, and it wasn't so much, it was really leads up to the capture. Doesn't lead up to anything before that. So we know that. And the first mass thing in the United States that we dealt with was the TV show Holocaust. Was a major, you know, was a major work that everybody talked about. So I didn't know, you know, this is what it really dealt with. And then we had The Winds of War, which dealt with it at a certain point. So it really wasn't until, you know, the 70s and the 80s that we were really now dealing with it. You know, and we're dealing, you know, the United States was dealing with its own culpability, with its own guilt. You know, and if we want to talk about it from a point of view of the film industry, you know, they didn't want, Hollywood never said anything during that period either, in the mid 30s. Why? Because they were still selling films to Germany. They were still selling movies to Germany, and they didn't want to cut them off because that was money. It was all about the money. And you think of the irony of that Hollywood, the Hollywood moguls were all Jewish. And here, the Warner Brothers especially was saying, no, you know, they kept their head down because they're dealing, you know, they're dealing with selling film to the Nazis at that period. So there is all of these things swimming around in the background. Which make, you know, for the history behind this film and what he's dealing with. Thank you, Rachel. Marilyn.
Yeah, I thought that, sorry, I thought that she did get revenge at the end, because that very, very subtle means of singing that song, that at first she pretended that she couldn't sing, or maybe she just was so choked up she didn't. And then suddenly the voice came out, the strength, and that song was the best. I mean, I was crying as she was singing it, but I thought that she really did. She got him, and he looked destroyed.
Yeah, no, there's no question. It's a sense of revenge, but it's also a sense of identity in saying, yes, it's me. It's me. You know, you didn't kill me, not just talking to them, but Germany didn't kill me. I'm here. And you know, you're looking at the genuine article, you're looking at Nelly, I'm back. And make no mistake, and she's able to walk away from them and walk away from Germany, probably, which is what we're dealing with here. But yes, it is a form of revenge without question. That she gets. It's a self, you know, it's the sense of fulfillment for herself, a sense of fulfillment in herself. So yes, thank you. Marilyn London.
Thank you. One of the things that I remember from the movie was when Lenny is listening to or watching Nelly after she has been exposed to, you know, to what's his name again?
Johnny.
And she says that she's having a hard time dealing with what she sees Lenny forgiving him. And I think that really struck me, because sometimes when you are going through such horrific experiences and somebody watching you go through it, and you're seeing that they're willing to forgive something that is totally maybe not forgivable to them. I thought that that was very significant, and I thought maybe that was something that led Lenny to maybe not being able to continue living.
That's a good point. And you know, there are things that are not spoken in the film and not shown in the film. And we know what Lenny does. We know what her job is. And the fact that, you know, here we're seeing what Johnny's doing may not be that alien. Lenny may have come across this with people coming in and asking, you know, either asking for money, asking for, you know, what happened to this relative. And they may not have been, you know, on the up and up. A lot of these things may have been played out by other people. So she knows what's going on. I think she realized when she saw, you know, she got a glimpse of the guy running out, you know, of Johnny running out. So I think she knew it was him, and she saw what he was looking at, and she pieced it together. And no, she couldn't forgive, but also it's everything she was dealing with. You know, she was dealing with the dead, the constant, you know, we saw her on looking at the lists and crossing names off and looking and realizing, because I think it was even Nelly that asked, what about Esther? And she looks at the list and she saw Esther's name on the list, that she had died. So, you know, all of these things were, you know, as I said, you know, we can relate to it from Ida itself. In many ways, you know, it's another film that dealt with it in a different way, but the same outcome, you know, is there were people who couldn't live on, and it was very, very interesting. But yes, I think that scene you're talking about when she does that is it could have been just another element that pushes her that way. Thank you. Thank you. Susan Metch.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the loss of identity. And that's what the very beginning was started that way, when they were stopped by the soldiers, and he saw the bandaged face, and then she told him who she was, and she had no idea who she was. But the biggest part was that she wanted her face back. She wanted to be who she was. And that's what she said to the plastic surgeon several times. Can't you make me look like myself? Can't you make me look for myself? And it was a search. That was part of it. It was part of the whole thing, and in the whole movie, this search for who she was. And Johnny, I think she thought was going to give her the identity she needed. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, he was gonna confirm the fact that she's back, she's alive. You know, and now they can continue their lives. But, you know, she also, the shock of the war, the shock of what happened to her, you know, what happened to her physically, could all be erased at that point. If he takes her back, it's fine. Life goes on. But she didn't, she was shocked into realizing that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. So yes, it is, you know, this whole thing, it is very much about identity, not just the German identity, not just the Jewish identity, but Nelly's identity. You know, we have to remember, this is like a film noir. It plays out like a thriller. I mean, the shape of the film, the structure of the film, he's telling us a story, and you know, using history itself as a background for the story, and then inserting it into the story, and it's done brilliantly. I thought it was done brilliantly. And that's the purpose, you know, of film. It's not a documentary, it's a story, it's a movie. And you know, much the way Hitchcock made his movies. So, you know, we're either, you know, we're somewhat entertained by the film, but we're also cognizant of what Petzold is doing. You know, he's also creating a document that tells us who's guilty. That tells us what the Germans, what National Socialism did to Germany during that period. And those scars will never go away. Those scars will never disappear. And she reminds us of that in the end. She reminds us of that in the end. So let me move on. Thank you, Susan. Maria, I will get to everyone.
Oh, I loved the movie. I loved it. And I love your interpretation. It was wonderful. You did such a wonderful job, just like always. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason I loved it is because, first of all, the movie was just excellent, but I could relate to it because I come from a communist country. And when you have these regimes that are so horrible, they, even if you're a good person, but you're separated from your loved ones and you are thrown into these situations that are so tragic, then you see so many people, how they get divorced, the families are all broken, and people just have so many problems to deal with. I mean, the aftermath of a war, it's just horrible. So thank you so much for suggesting such a great movie.
My pleasure. Thank you, Maria. Okay, Dorothy?
Yeah, my question is, what was it ever made clear what she was going to inherit?
Yeah, money, a great deal of money.
Oh, was
yeah,
it made
yeah,
clear?
it
I don't remember that segment
Yeah,
because that's,
yeah.
and you're saying that's why they all felt that they were victims because they wouldn't be able to share in her.
No, that's not why they all felt like victims. That was just their expression to her. They really didn't know how to confront her. He was setting all of this up, basically, and they would all share in the money
That's what I
he
mean.
would get. He said,
Right.
remember, he said to her, you'll get some money and go away, basically, not knowing that it's Nelly. But yes, they would all share in the money. It was all about
Right.
money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Excellent.
Paula? Thank you.
Yeah.
Paula?
Yeah, the fact that she got a gun to enter that scene, I kind of was constructing my own ending. So first I thought when she had the realization about Johnny that she might shoot him. And when that didn't happen, at the very end, when she goes out of the apartment, I was waiting for a gunshot. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I was sure she was going to just end it all for herself.
It's a very real comment. Listen, I'm sure there are other people who felt the same way. When they saw the gun, they said, "Oh, good, she's going to go and kill him." We're trained. Those are trained responses. You've seen so many movies, and this is not Hollywood. This is a very astute director that knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing to the audience. He knows what he's doing to the characters. And he even admitted in discussions about the film that he wasn't sure about certain things. He wasn't, there are three things happening in that moment. She's got the letter, she's got the gun, he's got the plan. What am I going to do? I wanted Johnny, and now I know what he's done to me, that he really doesn't love me. This is not about love anymore.
Bang!
Yeah, exactly. And so you feel justified if she were to do that. But that's not, that's Petzold raises this whole thing to the level of art, to the level of someone who is suffering from an obsession. And that obsession now is shaken by what happens. And she's not a killer. They wanted to kill her. This society wanted to kill her. She's the victim here. And yet she's going to rise above it. She's got a life ahead of her. And now she realizes it. Okay, no, this is what I thought was going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I have to control it. She takes back control at the end, which is really what was interesting. So thank you, Paula. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Linda, then Barbara, then Mel. I see you all. Don't worry, I'll get to you all.
Okay.
Mine may be.
I meant Linda.
Is there two
Hock. I meant
Lindas?
Yeah,
Which
there's
Linda?
two Lindas. Linda Hawk had a hand
Oh,
up for a
okay.
while,
Yeah.
and Linda Paper, I'll get to you, I promise.
Well, I was just
I've
gonna say
written it
that,
to you.
Yeah, I saw. That's why I'll get to you. Don't worry. Go ahead, Linda. I'm sorry.
anyway, I know a lot of you have mentioned revenge, and I don't really think she was after revenge then. I actually felt that she was actually going to forgive him for betraying her. I think she was on that path because he was doing, but I think what broke her was when she found out that he had divorced her prior to that. So I don't think she was after revenge at all. I think she just had to carry that through. And then she told us there at the end, I just wanted to sing with Johnny one more time. Once more,
well,
I think. And so I think that's all she was after. She was after that one more. She's going to take it to the end. She's going to get to, to finish that off, that reminder of her old life, and then she could walk away.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a planned revenge all along. No, not at all.
No, but I never thought there was revenge even at the end. I think she just wanted it for her. She wasn't necessarily trying to destroy him. She just wanted that one more time with him, and then she could walk away.
Well, ultimately, that's true. That's true. But revenge is sort of apparent. It's like you don't see it. You don't say, I'm going to take my revenge out on them, but it's revenge nonetheless because of what she does. It comes out as revenge nonetheless. Or we could look at it and say, no, it wasn't revenge, but she was avenged. She was avenged.
And she could just walk away, and she didn't try to, tell anybody about the plot he had or anything. She just, did the thing, saw his face. She, she done it, and then she was able to walk away.
But
as you said, the change in her as the colors draining from his face, he's destroyed, and she's empowered, and then she left. So I love it.
Yeah, she made it necessary for him to see her arm at that point too. He sees it and realizes, okay, the jig is up. The jig is up. But yes, thank you. Linda Pavey has something very interesting to say, which I will also comment on.
I purposely wrote it to you because it's so factual. I didn't think I would get it all together. But the only stretch that I had, I love the movie. The only stretch that I had was the voice. She wasn't changing her voice. Your eyes don't change. Somebody that you love, you've looked into their eyes many times. So that was my stretch. But I was so focused on the music and then looking into the composer and his background. I didn't know who Nelly Lenz was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have it in the chat because there's just so much fact here. The melody, that he did the Threepenny Opera, which was one of the longest running plays on Broadway. I remember that as a kid. And Mac the Knife. I didn't know any of that. So I focused on the music.
That's great. No, well, first of all, I have to tell you though, there is a sort of sneaky thing that he does, that Petzold does. Kurt Weill didn't write that song until the early 40s. He wrote it here in America. And what's interesting, but he wanted to use it because he loved the song. Petzold wanted to use it because he loved the song. So he sneaks it into the movie. She wouldn't have sung it. The point is, she wouldn't have sung it before the war. So she wouldn't have had that memory of that particular song. But that's a conceit, which is fine because the movie's a fiction. So I don't mind it. Nobody should really mind it. It works. It's a song that works. But yes, the whole idea of Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht did the Threepenny Opera. Lotte Lenya was, I think, married to Brecht at the time. She was a marvelous actress. For those of you who may remember her, she was in a James Bond movie. It was called From Russia with Love.
Oh, I saw.
And she played the woman with the knife in her boot who tries to kill James Bond. It was one of her last roles, but she was a marvelous actress. And yes, the Threepenny Opera ran off Broadway actually at a place called the Theater de Lys in Manhattan for about 10 years. It was a fabulous play. It gave birth to a lot of stars on Broadway. So I'm glad you did that. I'm glad it got you interested in that. And that's what the
It made me
film
do
should be
research.
designed should do. Yeah, that's terrific. Thank you, Linda. Okay, Barbara Tate.
There we go. I don't have anything deep to say, really. It's all been said, but I was very fond of the lead actor, who apparently this director has used again and again. This is, I think, the third movie we've seen him in.
Yeah, you saw him in
Say,
Barbara.
Zerfeld or something.
Yes,
Ronald
he was in-
Zerfeld.
Ronald Zierfeld. He was
Yeah.
in The People versus Fritz Bauer. And
Yeah, he was in
that wasn't
Barbara.
that wasn't a Petzold film, but yes, he's been in 3 we've seen. He was in Barbara. That's where Petzold first used him, then used him in this movie. He has become quite a presence in German film in the last few years. So yeah, he's a terrific actor. You could see, what's great is you see Petzold and you see him use an actor and create different characters with that actor.
Yes.
They become his muses. It's the way Scorsese works with De Niro. It's, that they can work with an actor who can and form characterizations. They work on the same wavelength. It's terrific.
I thought he did a terrific job, kind of slimy.
Yeah. Yes. He did. Mel.
Everyone should remember when she's riding the bike and they're going to the station, she's giving a plausible reason why he did it. Oh, we can forgive you because that's what people do and blah, blah, blah. She wanted to hear him confess, more or less, or just say everything was all right. But that was one of the pieces that made her realize that he really was a crumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, of course, is Phoenix. Phoenix is that mystical bird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Comes
Well,
back
yeah,
to
that
life.
rises from the ashes. Absolutely. Oh, yes. The title works on so many levels. The club's name is Phoenix. I mean, all of these things. But you bring up an interesting portion of the film is there's also when they go back to that hotel where she was hidden. Just before that, there's the scene in the park, and they're outside, and these men are coming out, and he takes her and he kisses her to hide her from everyone. There's that whole thing of I don't want anybody to see you. So is there an indication that maybe he's beginning to believe who she is? Because he says she doesn't look quite like Nelly, but maybe that was delusional too. Maybe, he was denying it and now he's hiding her. And, so there are these little sections of the film which make us question. He throws these little, what I call Easter eggs in, which make us question. And we do have the Chekhov gun, but it doesn't go off. It doesn't go off. I love the fact that he inserts it into the film and he doesn't make it go off. Is wonderful. So anybody else? Anyone else? Yes, Nora.
All right. I thought the con was kind of interesting. And it didn't make sense until you knew he divorced her. Because the Germans kept excellent records, which you could see by how many people were dead, and they were looking through the files. So if she was dead, as everyone believed, and he was married to her, he would have collected the inheritance. But he needed her to be alive because he divorced her. And when the con would only work if she would collect it, and then she was split it amongst him and his friends. So I didn't. So until the very end, I didn't understand the con until the divorce papers showed up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was why he was breaking into the records at the beginning. I mean, we have to go back all the way to the beginning, and now you understand why he was breaking into the records to get those records, so that he could prove she's alive. you know, and which he didn't get. But the fact, you know, and the fact is he believed, he was in denial because he wanted to believe she was dead. So he put on the con and bring her back to life and collect the money. And that's the end of it. But no, the best laid plans. It was very, very interestingly crafted film, very interestingly crafted. Really ranks up there. And I am disappointed that, you know, they named these 100 best films and it didn't show up. And I was disappointed because his work is just so superior. But anyway, we'll see more of his films down the road. Anybody else? Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Barbara, did you? Barbara Tate, did you? Oh, I saw your hand go up.
I'm done. I'm done. I just had my hand up.
Great. Well, in 2 weeks, we're back again, and I have a lovely film. It's actually Germany going to Japan. You know, we travel from Germany to Japan in this film, and it's not a remake, but it has influences of a lot of other film. The name of the film is Cherry Blossoms, and it's the story of a husband and wife, and they have 3 children, and they decide, when you see at the beginning of the film, their reasons, you'll see their reasons, they decide to visit their children. They have 2 living in Berlin. They don't live in Berlin, they live in a small town outside of Berlin, and they decide to start visiting their kids. And we see what happens in that instance. And then they move on to, one of them moves on to Japan. I don't want to talk more about the film. I want you to see it. I think it's an exquisite film. It's a film about love. It's a film about loss. It's a film about the secrets we hold from one another, the secret desires that we may have expressed and the other person didn't hear. We see that, and it's beautifully shot. It's done by a German director. Her name is Doris Dary, and it is an award-winning film, and it's beautifully acted, and I can't wait to discuss it with you. So it's available on Canopy, where you should see it. I think it's available in other places as well, for those of you who don't get Canopy, but I think you all should at this point. And I will look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Thank you. This was great.
Thank
Once
you.
again.
So much. This was amazing.
Thank
You
you.
never-
Thank you so much,
Shelley.
Shelley.
You never let me
Bye-bye.
down.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And thank you, Friends of the Library, too.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, bye all. Thank you. Thanks, Shelley.
Take care, Marilyn. Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I'm gonna end it.